I think I'm on a whole new level. I think I'm breaking out my mental. I'm finally finding my inner peace, baby.
Welcome back to the Final Drive Podcast, episode number 2. And it's just me tonight. It's just McCord, and I'm going to give y'all a quick week 2 sort of forecast. And, we had a great week 1. It's officially football season. I feel like it's starting to finally hit. It can take a couple weeks to finally kick in, but college football is very much back. And then pro football is about to get into the thick of things here. And as of right now, Penn State's playing Auburn. You've got Georgia, South Carolina. And then you've had some Thursday night and Monday night football. How great is it to have football back? I feel like everyone's in a better mood. You got something to talk about. And it's the best time of the year, right? And as well as it coincides with baseball as well. It's a great time of the year. And, of course, week 2. Got some great games, great storylines that I'd like to touch on a little bit. I think the first one that I really want to talk about that was most interesting to me was this Urban Meyer situation with Jacksonville getting basically killed in week 1 against Tyrod Taylor and Coach Dave down there. Shout out Pat McAfee and the Houston Texans. So the takeaways from this game were obviously that Trevor Lawrence didn't have as bad of a game as people thought. I want to put that out there. While, sure, for any rookie quarterback, there's going to be some growing pains, and I feel like the statistics make his game look a lot worse than it did. I do want to go back to that one play where Trevor Lawrence threw to, I believe it was DJ Chark. The play that's been shown all over Instagram and whatever the last week or so. It's the perfect throw he made up to the left side of the end zone for about a 45, 50-yard touchdown. That was awesome. So I think Trevor Lawrence made some great plays. He's a rookie. He's in Jacksonville as well. Things are going to be a little rough at first, which is fine. We're not expecting him to do anything. By the way, that stat of him, first regular season loss basically ever, is ridiculous. This dude's going to be fine. However, let's talk about his head coach, Urban Meyer. Okay, now we've seen it before in the past. You've seen it from Nick Saban, who left a Miami Dolphins team to go to Alabama. Now, that might have been the right choice, obviously, but you get what I'm trying to go after. Also, Bobby Petrino, who actually did this exact situation where he left the Atlanta Falcons, I'm pretty sure middle of the season, and went back to coach Arkansas or Louisville. It's one of those two, and it was a whole middle of the season departure. And Urban Meyer, with this USC job that has an opening, and Urban Meyer, of course, being one of the great college football coaches of the last decade at Ohio State, has shown, I guess, some interest from multiple sources. And maybe 1 week after getting destroyed in the NFL, he's like, ooh, maybe I don't want to be here for as long as I maybe thought I wanted to. Which is kind of crazy for me. But we've seen it in the past. We've seen it from Urban Meyer himself. And maybe it's a possibility. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on that. But for me personally, I think he's actually going to be here for the long run. Maybe, I really can't say. I don't know what the long run is. But I think when you have a rebuilding team like Jacksonville and you're Urban Meyer and you decide to accept a head coaching job in the NFL and for the Jaguars, it's not only going to be difficult, it is going to be very difficult. And especially when you have a team that's missing some pieces on offense and defense. So I think that Urban Meyer didn't sign up for this job thinking that Jacksonville was going to be a Super Bowl team. I think that basically everyone can agree on this opinion. So, when you think about that, if he's accepting the job and he's going to leave after one game, would be shocking, I think. I think it'd be one of the, like, just a crazy move, and could have lasting effects on not only the Jaguars, but maybe other NFL situations or just coaching jobs in general. Because when you get a guy like Trevor Lawrence, we've seen how multiple head coaches in a young career can drastically affect a rookie or first-year quarterback, or second-year quarterback, sorry. It is very negative, and way more times than not ends very badly. So, Urban Meyer, I think that Urban Meyer he just has to stay. Like, I think he will stay, and I feel like that these rumors may have gotten out of control. But would I be surprised if he left? Not really. It wouldn't be like a shock. It'd be like, whoa, he left? Like, dang, that's crazy. But like, oh, it's Urban Meyer. Like, you could see it come. You know what I'm trying to get at. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure. But also, I believe that you just can't, you're, as a head coach, you don't quit on your team. As a leader, you don't quit on your team. You don't just walk out the door and hold your head high like you've done something amazing. Like, you don't do that. Like, that's just as a human. You don't quit on the people that you work for. And in this case, Urban Meyer, you don't quit on the people whose jobs are not in your hands, but are molded by your hands. If you sort of see what I'm getting at there. That was just a very interesting situation for me. Just reading about it, and it how likelihood could happen, and I think that'd be quite a shock to basically all NFL fans. It'd be one of the biggest storylines of the year. Speaking of more storylines that are happening right now, the Dallas Cowboys have had a bunch of players test positive for COVID, and not to get political, but basically, this is just the world that we live in still in 2021. Most people, not most people, but a lot of people that you talk to will say, oh, this was all in the past, like, we're over this, but no. There are still many positive tests going around this Dallas Cowboys locker room, and how it affects the games that have to be played coming up is definitely something to watch out for. On top of the injuries that the Cowboys have had, DeMarcus Lawrence being the biggest one. He has a broken bone in his foot, will be out 6 to 8 weeks. Which, on top of that, the Cowboys, who already need some help, like with Dak Prescott carrying them as much as he is, they need some help. To continue to have COVID problems and injuries is just not going to help that, and could have a huge negative effect on the outcome of the next couple weeks. And then getting into some of this week's games, let's dive into some of these Week 2 matchups. And of course, on Thursday Night Football, the football team played host to the New York Giants in a fantastic game. And it all came down to a Dustin Hopkins game-winning field goal, also caused by Giants special teams mishaps. You just cannot have those. That's inexcusable if you are the New York Giants. To step offside to try to block the kick, and he misses it at the same time. Just a brutal way to end the game for them. But shout out to Daniel Jones, who played a fantastic game, maybe his best game as a Giant. He looked very, very good. And this being a year where the Giants probably need to start showing some results of the Daniel Jones era here, or just the post-Eli era. And I think Daniel Jones put up a just very respectable, pretty dang solid performance. He impressed me for sure. And Taylor Heineke, on the other side of the ball, did Drew Brees type things. He was dotting up receivers. Even he didn't use his legs, really. I mean, unlike that playoff game against Tampa Bay, we all remember the play of him diving down to the left side of the end zone, hitting the pylon, and scoring. He didn't need to make those plays. He looked extremely comfortable in the pocket was making throws to the sidelines, perfect position, like great balls that he was throwing. He had one hiccup, but besides that, man, Taylor Heinicke might be the guy down there in Washington. Extremely, extremely impressive game from him. And I think when you look at a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, if Taylor Heinicke is playing well in week 7 or 8 or whenever Fitzpatrick is supposed to be back, I don't know if you take Fitzpatrick. I don't know if you bring Fitzpatrick back. I think if Taylor Heinicke plays well, I think it's his job to lose now, in my opinion. I think if he plays very average or below average, I think you can consider bringing Fitzpatrick back when he recovers from his injury. But as of right now, man, I think this is Taylor Heinicke's job to lose. And if the kid plays well, man, he 100% deserves it. And as of on Thursday night's performance, I would say that he's got the team behind him as well. McLaurin was playing extremely well, and the defense was even rallying around. And we all know that image of Chase Young pointing at his jersey name. So great game from them. That was a great football game. But moving into this weekend, we'll just go down the list here. Raiders, Steelers. This is going to be the first game back at home for Pittsburgh, of course, since before COVID. And what an atmosphere that is going to be. I can't wait to watch this game. And the Raiders, of course, coming off an amazing game against the Ravens, where they won in overtime on a Zay Jones touchdown pass. That was a crazy finish. And they looked really good, man. This is going to be one of the best games of the week, I think, 100%. I got Pittsburgh in this game, but if the Raiders win, I could 100% see it. I think this is going to be not necessarily a coin flip, just because I do believe in Pittsburgh's defense. That front seven, man. Whew. Got TJ Watt and the boys flying around. Oh, man. Combining that with the young offense, Big Ben is probably the weakest link on that team, which is pretty crazy to think about. That team is extremely solid, and that's why I have them winning this weekend. Next up, 49ers Eagles. 49ers looked pretty dang good against the Lions. The Lions tried to mount a late but too late comeback against them, but man, to put up 41 points in week 1, extremely impressive. As well as another team that they're playing had an extremely impressive week 1 performance. The Philadelphia Eagles. What a great game they showed against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm very curious to see if this week were the Eagles that team, or were the Falcons just not that team at all? I'm very curious to watch this. This is going to be another very good matchup, I think. And I think Jalen Hurts looked very, very good. I'm a huge Jalen Hurts supporter. I think that he has the potential to be one of the best young quarterbacks coming up in the league right now. But I think if he continues to play at the level that he did in week 1, man, I could definitely see them winning this game. I just think that as of right now, San Francisco is the more developed team. They're the more win right now team. And for me personally, that's why they have them winning. Houston versus Cleveland. Houston coming off, I'd say, a big win against Jacksonville, which I can't really say that for a lot of teams, getting big wins against the Jaguars. But after all of the controversy and all of the Deshaun Watson stuff going around Houston, to show up like they did, even if it was against the bottom NFL team, I'd say that there are a lot of positives right now in Houston. Tyrod Taylor looked fantastic. I'm very excited to see what he does this week. But on the other side of the field, the Cleveland Browns. I think the Cleveland Browns are one of the best teams in the AFC. I think Baker Mayfield is a great quarterback. And, man, that defense is fantastic as well. Very excited for this game. But I think Cleveland pretty much runs away with this one, man. I think they had a very legitimate chance to beat the Chiefs last week, and frankly should have beaten the Chiefs last week after leading 22-10 in the second half. But I'm going to take the Browns here by maybe 1 or 2 scores. 2 or 3 scores, maybe by 10. I'll take Browns by 10 here. Denver versus Jacksonville. I've mentioned Jacksonville a lot this episode. There's not much more I need to say about them. The Broncos, not too much that needs to be said either. They're a solid team. Again, sort of in the middle of they don't really know their direction. Not quite rebuilding, I don't think, but also they're kind of in NFL purgatory. But I'll take the Broncos here until the Jaguars convince me that they are a good enough football team to win some games. I'm probably going to go against them every week. New Orleans versus Carolina. The Saints obviously coming victorious against that huge Green Bay Packers team. And to go into Jacksonville after all the problems that New Orleans has had, again, prayers up to the city of New Orleans. I can't imagine having to deal with that after all these years, to deal with another hurricane. It's unbelievable. But the Saints really put the city of New Orleans on their backs, and I think they continued that momentum this week. After blowing out the Packers, Jameis Winston earned my player of the week last week. Again, not necessarily the greatest statistical game, but even though, he played fantastic, used his legs, pretty much showed all the strengths that you expected from that 30-30 season to come through, and with no interceptions. He looked fantastic. And against a pretty solid Carolina defense, we'll have to see how he does this week. Also, shout out to that Saints defense, holding the number one offense in the league last season to 3 points. Very, very impressive. On the other side of the ball, Carolina looked pretty solid week one. Sam Darnold at the helm now for them. Again, pretty solid on both sides of the ball. For me, though, I'm going to have to go with the Saints. I think they just looked too good week one for me to bet against them, man. Moving to the Rams-Colts. Maybe my favorite matchup of the week. I'm most excited for this game. The Rams probably looked better than any NFL team last week. The combination of Stafford and that amazing defense, what a perfect fit for Matthew Stafford. Couldn't be happier for the guy. I think he's the perfect fit for that Rams team. And then on the other side of the ball, the Colts, Carson Wentz, still kind of fitting into his new role, I think. And with the Hard Knocks, I'm very interested to see how that's going to affect the team. We can talk more about that later with the rest of the guys on the podcast. But very interested to see how that affects it. Again, still believe the Colts are a very, very solid team. But they need to start winning some games here for sure. They got a tough schedule ahead of them. But I'm going to go Rams here. I just think that amazing defense plus Matthew Stafford now. Again, until I see that they're not winning, I'm going to be taking the Rams in basically every game. Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo got off to a rough start. They did not look good, plain and simple, against the Steelers. Josh Allen did not have his best game. The defense didn't look all that great either. But in this game, I think he bounces back, gets back to that MVP level Josh Allen that we were used to seeing. Miami looked not very good, but looked pretty good. They went into a tough place to play in Foxborough. They took the win. So shout out to the Dolphins, but I'm going to take the Bills here. New England versus the New York Jets. Not much to say here. Mac Jones versus Zach Wilson is going to be a very intriguing matchup that will be very fun to watch. Both teams kind of in their rebuilding stages. I'll take New England, though. I think they're the more solid team. Cincinnati versus Chicago. Cincinnati were one of the more positive storylines of last weekend. That Jamar Chase to Joe Burrow connection, other way around. Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection is extremely fun to watch and to play against the Chicago Bears. Again, a team that's sort of not rebuilding, but also is not really ready to win now. Ty Kosei said it the best when he was like, I don't really know what direction they're heading in. The Bears, specifically, he meant, which I agree with him. And the Bears I'm not sure what's going on in the front office there. We'll see how long it takes for Justin Fields to get on the field. But as of right now, man, we'll see. And until I see something more positive from the Bears, I'm going to go with the Bengals again, who looked great. Buccaneers. Falcons got crushed, man. They looked like the worst team in the league last week. And against one of the best teams, defending Super Bowl champion and Tom Brady-led Buccaneers. Not much more I need to say. I'm going Buccaneers. Vikings, Cardinals, two very solid teams. The Cardinals looked very, very good. And against the Vikings team that looked not great, to be honest. So, for that very reason, Kyler Murray, Chandler Jones had such an amazing week. Wow. Maybe the greatest performance in an NFL game by an edge rusher ever, of all time. Unbelievable game from him. And I think they continue that momentum and beat Minnesota. Tennessee versus Seattle. Tennessee obviously got off to a very rough start against the Cardinals. And we'll see if Tannehill and Henry can bounce back. I think they will. But against a Russell Wilson-led Seahawks team, Russell Wilson looked like he was in MVP form last week against the Colts. And I'm going to go Seahawks here as well. Dallas versus the Chargers. I think Dak Prescott looked fantastic against the Buccaneers, and they probably should have won that game. Regardless, Cowboys looked really, really good, the best that I've seen them play in a while, to be completely honest. And against the Chargers team that's still growing up a little bit. Justin Herbert, I think, is still that dude. I still love that defense. I'm going to go Cowboys, though. Next game, Kansas City versus Baltimore. Another great quarterback matchup. I think Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Mac Jones and Zach Wilson are my two favorite quarterback battles to watch this week. And, of course, I think Kansas City is just too good of a team. I think they're incredibly well-rounded, offensively, defensively, phenomenal. And while I think Lamar Jackson can do it all and is a generational talent, I think until I see the amount of injuries that they've had and until I see those roles be filled, I'm going to have to go Kansas City for now. And last but not least, Detroit versus Green Bay, the Monday night matchup. While Detroit looked better than average, and even though the Packers put up probably the worst performance in Week 1, I'm still going to have to go Green Bay by multiple scores here. I think Aaron Rodgers decides to wake up from whatever that last week was and decide to just torture the Lions defense. The Packers cut a huge break. Every single NFC North team lost. And I think that with all of the difficult games the Packers have coming up, they have a very difficult schedule. I think that winning this game by a lot would do wonders for the team's confidence, morale. I think this is a very big week for them. So I'm going to go Packers by multiple scores. And that pretty much does it, man. Week 2, very exciting. We are, again, back in football season. It's great. I wanted to get a quick episode out. The rest of the boys couldn't make it. I felt the need to get an episode out before Week 2. And we will go over everything on probably Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We'll get an episode out between then. But enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy NFL football. And enjoy the rest of these college football games as well. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. And follow the podcast on Instagram at the Final Drive Podcast. We just hit 50 followers, so shout out to y'all for following. Follow the Twitter at TFD Pod. And again, listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. So that's going to be it for me. Have a good one, y'all.
I'm on a whole new level. I think I'm breaking out my mental. I'm finally finding my inner peace, baby.